Will Gadd joins me here in studio.
Thank you very much for having me.
Gladly. So what did your climbing buddies say to you when you told them you're going to climb Niagara Falls?
Oh, that was the worst part, is I couldn't tell anybody. Part of the permitting process for Niagara Falls is we couldn't have a gong show there. So I couldn't tell any of my friends. And I'm flying out to Buffalo, New York, and Niagara Falls all the time. Like, what are you doing out there? Where are you going? Oh, I got to go to Toronto, have some meetings. And then go over to Niagara Falls and have a look at it. So when I did it, though, of course, my friends are, what? No way. So it's great.
Do you typically draw kind of inspiration from that community and sharing what your next adventure would be? So, like, was it hard to not be able to talk to them about it?
Yeah, it was really hard because it ate my life. This is Niagara Falls, biggest waterfall, craziest waterfall on the planet. More water coming off of there, and I can't talk about it. I'm going to get to go climb it. It was horrible.
So tell us what the preparation is like for that.
Yeah, the preparation for Niagara Falls took 8 months. And it started out with going into the parks office and asking the head guy. We did it on the U.S. side just because the way the ice forms up, it's better over there on the American side. But and asking the parks guy, hey, we'd sort of like to climb Niagara Falls? Could we do that? And the answer was, an emphatic, I believe it was, expletive no. He wasn't even in government speak at that point. And then we had to go through an incredibly complicated process involving a lot of people and learning how the American political system worked and getting to meet the governor's staff, and eventually I'm standing at the bottom of it, and there's freight trains falling off the edge, and I'm going to get to climb it.
And now, how do you get up a 150-foot sheet of ice?
Yeah, that's a good question. Kind of a hockey rink worth of ice, really. So to climb ice in general, you want to turn yourself into kind of a grizzly bear. You get these big claws on your hands, and those are ice tools, and you slam them into the ice, and claws for your feet, crampons. And that allows you to stay attached to ice. We all walk out of our houses and face plant and think ice sucks. And it's like,
we just don't have the proper.
You don't have the proper gear. It's on the frozen sidewalks. I have tools for that. So and that's what you use. And then I also had a partner on the climb, who's my girlfriend Sarah Hoonican, and she holds the rope because the first rule of all of this is you die, you lose. And I don't want to do that. This is great. Life is good. I want to keep doing it. So you have some gear for protection, but you lead it. You do start at the bottom and climb to the top. And in my world, that's very important.
And you encountered something called the Coldren of Doom.
Yeah, the Coldren
along the
of
way.
Doom.
What was that?
Well, when you look at some of the pictures, and you can, the whole of Niagara Falls goes slamming straight down, and I'm climbing above where the falls hits the bottom. It's actually behind my back at times. And if I fell off down low, there's no gear. The rope isn't going to do anything. And I'm going to fall into this Coldren of Doom that's surrounded by like 50-foot ice walls and get destroyed in there, then stuffed under the ice on the Niagara River and go underneath that fall. So it would just be a bad place to be. The Coldren of Doom was really aptly named.
What did it feel like, that massive rush of water around you? What did that feel like?
It's so powerful. Some places you look at and, wow, it's really beautiful, and Grand Canyon, wow, it looks really neat. But Niagara Falls, it shakes your guts. Have you been there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can feel it, right? The ground moves. It's this visceral sort of, wow, this is a big, big feature. And then looking up at it and saying, yeah, I'm going to climb that. I was really nervous. It's just so powerful.
Hearing this story, it made me think that in this day and age, we have so much access to information. We can learn so much, but it's a different kind of knowing when you know with your body. You experienced Niagara Falls physically.
Yeah.
In a way that the rest of us would not. So you know Niagara Falls in your body.
Yeah.
What is that like?
Well, it's an imprint. And in all the sports I do that you mentioned in the intro, that's what I like about it. The landscape leaves an imprint on you. When I fly the length of the Rockies in a paraglider, I know it. I've crashed into the dirt. I've tasted it in my mouth. I've walked around the meadows and know that place. And until you really sink into a landscape like that, you don't know it. And now I know what Niagara Falls tastes like. Because I got hit by the water. It doesn't taste very good. and I know what it looks like and how it feels. And I've looked through the water out through this veil of water because the whole thing didn't freeze. And it marks you. It really gets in there. And I had dreams about it for a long time afterwards. Just thinking about how it was working, and I'd wake up at night after I'd done it worried that I'd gotten it wrong, and the water level was going to fluctuate for power generation, and then it was going to sweep me out of there like, somebody turning on a giant spigot, and there goes Gadd down the river, So it was just so much going on there.
The story also made me think about the different kinds of fear
Yeah.
you must feel.
Yeah.
You must know different kinds of fear, some fear that is good, some fear that tells you, no, I don't do this climb. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, fear is a big part of my world, and I have a lot of it. Most people are surprised by that, like, oh, you must just not feel fear. But for me, fear is a sign that I'm not understanding a situation yet. And I break things down into all these little steps where I overcome that fear. And if I don't do that, I've learned over the years that I'm about to make a really stupid decision. If I'm at the top of a big drop in my kayak and I'm terrified, you know, and I was younger, I'd literally vomit in the drop, right at the top of drops because I was so scared. And then I'd push it and usually nothing good would happen. And now as I've gotten older, if I have that feeling, I pull the pin. I'm like, all right, what's actually going to kill me here? And have I dealt with that or not? You know, there was the old Donald Rumsfeld quote about known unknowns, and I thought that guy was an idiot until I got to the part of the quote where it was like unknown unknowns. And that's what keeps me up at night, are the unknown unknowns. What have I not figured out? And that's kind of my biggest fear is at Niagara Falls, you know, is there going to be a boat coming off the top of that thing? Like, what could happen? You know, you really don't know.
So what did the fear feel like going into that climb? Did you feel like you had addressed all those things you were scared of?
Yeah, but there's huge pressure there. You know, normally if I fall off the start of a climb, I don't go into the Coldren of Doom. I hit the ground in the snow, and I probably am even going to walk away from it if there's enough snow. At Niagara Falls, I'm going to get killed, and then it's going to be international news. You know, nobody cares if I break my leg in the Canadian Rockies. You know, it might make the local news. But at Niagara Falls, I'm going to get a call from like Anderson Cooper. So you broke your, you're going to call me. You know, so I did it well, so I'm here. Right. But that's another level of pressure. It's one thing to get pressure from the environment and fear and dangers there. And then it's the whole social world. And that's way scarier. You know, I'm not a natural, you know, jump up and down in public kind of guy. I'm learning.
And you go around and you share these stories.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, do you feel a distance from people like myself, for example? The scariest thing I've ever done is, I don't know, walk on a balancing beam or something like that. Do you feel a distance from some of these people that you talk to?
I don't feel a distance from my audience because everybody out there has something that fires them up. And I've really learned that. I think there's a certain amount of almost arrogance in my world as an athlete and as a sporting person. It's like, we do the coolest thing. Look at us, you know, we're skiing these huge slopes and everything else. This is as cool as it gets. But what I've really found in my life is it's the same stuff for everybody. Everybody's got a car in their garage they're restoring. They've got a project that they're fired up about. Their kids are doing something cool. So those are the common denominators and how I try to, you know, find a way to access this. And, you know, you're an amazing artist and you get up in front of thousands of people. Like, that's got to be horrifying. I'm sure your arousal level or wherever your head's at it's the same as mine, man.
Interesting. So you see our psychologies as pretty similar.
Well, I don't know you well enough to make that.
Yeah, but in terms of, you know, I guess I take risks. I don't consider them risks, just like maybe you don't consider what you do as risky as your passion for it. Yeah,
I mean, if I get something wrong, nobody cares. If you're up on stage doing your thing, and that's a big deal. You know, But overall, the more I travel the world, and the more I talk to people, the more I am excited by how much we actually share. And then, you know, there are people who just need to go off the edge one way or the other. And especially a lot of young men, we got to do things that are like interesting and cool.
Yeah.
Or we're going to turn to other things. And I think that's more of an outlet a lot of us need. You know, not everybody needs to do what I need to do. It's probably not a good idea. Society would quit really fast. It wouldn't work anymore if everybody were like me. So we need everybody out there.
Is there an addictive dimension to what you do?
Yeah. I mean, anything interesting and exciting is addictive, right? If you find it really engaging and fascinating, then you get pulled toward it. And there's positive and negative parts of what I do. You know, the negative part, and I'm going to talk about that tonight, is I've had over 30 friends die in the mountains. That's negative. That's just no way around that in my view. And the positive side of it, and everybody has to have their own answer for that, is that I get to experience the most beautiful places with some really switched on people doing something that we care about deeply and find intensely meaningful. But that's not an easy balance. And if you look at it from the outside, I don't think there's a lot to differentiate anybody who's really, really passionate about what they do from an addict in some ways. It's just a more positive, I don't know if you read like Gabor Mate or anything, but like there's a lot of common ground in any kind of intensely meaningful experience, I think.
Is the nature side of it particularly addictive too? The fact that you're connecting with the earth?
Yeah, and I think we're better out there. You know, we spent so many thousands and hundreds of thousands of years of our existence running around outside. We're really good at that. We're really well adapted to that. I often take people into the mountains as a guide, and they're like, oh, how are we going to exist when it's minus 20 and we can't just go to Starbucks? I'm like, we're going to sort this out. You're good at this, trust me. And they are. Everybody's good at it. We're good at knowing when we're cold.
But we forget that stuff.
Well, we forget it, yeah. And we function better. Like, I've never seen anybody get trail rage. Like, you get on the QEW and people are going sideways out there, you know? Like, I've never seen that on the trails. People are better when they're outside. So for me, I feel like I and the people that I'm out with are better when we are outside. It's closer to who we are as humans.
Climbing and exploring has been a part of your life from the start.
Yeah.
Since your father, Ben Gadd, well-known guide and naturalist. What are some of the biggest things he taught you?
Probably the basics of paying attention to your environment. It's the situational awareness and what's happening around you that's really, really critical. And I saw accidents in the mountains when I was really young, and that makes, that leaves a mark. You see a bag go over your head in a helicopter, you pay attention as an 8-year-old kid. And I learned from my dad to have a margin in the mountains and to always be working toward having more margin and to take things carefully. And I still look at that the same way. And in everything I do in my life, when I'm driving, it's like, all right, the car in front of me, it's going to lock up. Where am I going to go? What's going to happen? I want to know where the exit is at the Roy Thompson Hall when I'm speaking tonight, because that audience could go sideways, man. I don't know. It's Toronto. Anything could happen, right? So that's how I look at it. But that was one of the biggest things I think he taught me.
But that didn't scare you off as a kid, those things that you saw, accidents.
I think what they did is make me more cautious and also plan better. Like, the big rush I get out of doing these things is executing something really complicated and intense at a really high level and doing it well with my team and getting everybody out of there safely. If there's one thing I'm proud of, it's that nobody on my trips has been seriously injured or killed. So what I saw as a kid made me realize the extent of the equation. It's not happy, we're going skiing today, we're not going to pay any attention. It's, this is real and we're going to get it right.
You don't always encounter extreme danger, for example, when you climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
Why was that important to you, that climb?
That climb was really important to me because that ice isn't going to be there, and it's Africa. And I've spent very little time in Africa, and I was like, well, I can go ice climbing in Africa, really? And then I started reading about it, and the ice is disappearing very, very quickly. What I wanted to climb initially, that wasn't there. I got some photos from people. And
what you set out to climb.
Yeah.
It just wasn't there.
It was gone. The whole top of Kilimanjaro used to be a giant ice field, maybe 20 by 20 kilometers. And now it's these little patches. That's all that's left up there. And I had all these great pictures. I researched my trips on the internet like anybody else, picking out a vacation. You look at, like hotels and stuff. I look at like, haha, there's ice there. And I show up and they're gone. It's just this desert on top of Kilimanjaro now.
How did that affect you, seeing that?
Well, it's tragic. It's that. What I wanted to see wasn't there, and what was left was just remnant slivers, really, of giant glaciers. And for me, that kind of drove home that what I'm seeing and experiencing globally, whether you call it climate change, global warming, whatever's going on, something really big is going on out there. Glaciers that have existed, like on Kilimanjaro, for tens of thousands of years are disappearing. The home glaciers that I used to get out of the car in the Rockies and walk to, they're like 5 kilometers. You got to bring a lunch. You're going for a ways. So you could look at that and think, well, what's happening? But on Kilimanjaro, that's a sign that in Tanzania and most of Eastern Africa, the weather patterns are changing. For me, I don't get to climb my icicles, and that's maybe a bit sad. But the people who live there, their lives are going to really, really change. I think we're living in interesting times, and if you're at all sensitive to the people in the world, things are going to be different, and that matters.
Does that inspire what you do now?
It's changed how I look at the world. Yeah. I've spent a lot of years doing the hardest, wildest things I could do. And I love doing that. It's a lot of fun. But what I want to do now is go around the world, look at places that are disappearing, document them, share the stories that are there, the people and the environment, and learn. I want to know more. I mean, it's a big world out there, and I want to go out and play with it, explore it, and meet it, and wrestle with it, stick my face into it like you talked about with Niagara.
You also have a couple kids now.
Yeah.
Does that change the motivation?
It's another factor out there for sure for me. I want to be a dad. I want to be around. So I will definitely balance things differently with that in mind. And people always say, well, you have kids. How can you do what you do? And I think that's a good question. I don't try and dodge that, and it's not an easy one to answer. But I also know that I'm not somebody that can sit at home and show up regularly for work. I'm bad at that. We've tried that. It didn't work out super well. It's not who I am as a human being. And I want my kids also to see their dad trying to live life and trying to do something that's meaningful and important and that I'm passionate about. But at the end of the day, if it comes down to any one decision, I want to make it on the side that brings me back to my kids. And, you know, they get outside and they love it. My daughter's birthday is next week. We're going to hike into a canyon with a bunch of her friends. We're going to eat birthday cake, and we're going to climb the walls in the canyon, and it's going to be awesome, you know? And I want to share those moments and share the outdoors with them.
Well, I hope you get a chance to do that for a long time.
Thank you. And if you ever want to go ice climbing, let me know. Take you out.
I'm a couple steps away from ice climbing. Maybe.
You're good. You're ready to go.
Okay.
No problem.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.